Great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first GemServe podcast, and thanks for joining us today. A bit of light your morning as you operate in your homes. So thanks for joining us today. We brought together some of the brightest brains working in their cellars, attics, kitchens, and conservatories right now. To share their expertise and experience on things you can use to make things better for your staff, your customers, and your business during the crisis. So we'll share ideas, tips, lessons learned, contacts and resources from years of experience in business resilience, IT and transformation. And we'll look at areas as how to get the most out of your operational capability immediately, how to implement changes in working practices quickly and with minimal disruption. We'll also talk about some lessons learnt, and we'll look at how to evaluate technology and tools to support changes, as well as practical planning for the future. There's a little bit of housekeeping that I just wanted to run you through before I introduce the panel. I can see that there are some questions on the chat around sound. I think that those are being addressed now. So in terms of housekeeping, and these may address those questions, it is best if you log in using Firefox or Chrome as a browser. And if you've got any questions, please direct them to the questions tab on the panel on the right-hand side, and we'll respond to them straight away if they're technical, and we'll feed them into the panel as we go via the chat. So I wanted to introduce the panel today. Today it consists of Ian Davis, a business continuity and cybersecurity expert of 30 years experience and 10 years at GemServe. As you can imagine, Ian's list of credentials is long, but a major relevant success was delivering the business continuity expertise to a major oil company, which gave them the resilience to successfully resist and recover from the Stuxnet attack, as well as natural disasters. Ian, do you want to say a quick hello? We've also got Wayne Samaru, an IT leader with over 20 years experience managing IT infrastructure, applications and managing teams that constantly improve the alignment of business and IT objectives. Wayne's a 4-year GemServe veteran, but his experience in evaluating and deploying technology to support business change spans across the UK, the US and Asia. I don't want to embarrass him or jinx him for that matter, but GemServe's seamless transition to a single day business as usual in a working from home environment's testament to Wayne's capabilities. Wayne, if you want to say a quick hello.
Hello, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
And last but no means least, we've got specialist with key experience in technology management, technology architecture. Now, great 40 years of experience. Yes, how can he be that old? I hear you are. In software engineering, implementation and enterprise architecture at a strategic, management and a technical level. Graham's effectively the glue that brings together the expertise of Ian and Wayne. They've advised you on considerations for your business continuity and security strategy and what you need to do to maintain operational BAU. Then Graham will help you ensure that you implement it in a way that gets you through the crisis and is also fit for purpose for the future. Graham, if you want to say a quick hello.
Hi, thanks for joining us. It's really great to see so many people.
Wonderful. So you've heard enough from me. I'll hand you over to the experts and I'll come back in to wrap up at any time. And as I say, please do ask us questions using the panel on the right-hand side.
Ian.
Yeah, hi, and good morning, everyone. I think we first looked at doing this about a week ago and anticipated quite a lot of change over the last week, and found probably not that much has changed. And I've been contacting quite a few people, talking to them about their experiences over the last 2 weeks, particularly. And found that a lot of organizations have struggled to get up and running with this, and I think that's down to a lot of overconfidence before this COVID-19 incident happened, over just how ready they were for continuity, and there was a perception that everybody's got laptops. Something happens, we can work from home, and maybe that was for half a day. Nobody ever envisaged that people would end up working from home for an extended period, and so the sort of issues that we've been helping people out with over the last couple of weeks have ranged from those who have not really had the infrastructure set up for this. Culturally, they had not embraced remote working, still the use of desktops, etc., and they've had to look at procurement and rollout of laptop and communications infrastructure, but also organizations who had never really tested how the entire workforce would work remotely, and so those are some of the challenges that we've been asked to help people with over the past couple of weeks, and I think the scramble for tools, a lot of and Wayne can probably cover this a lot better, but a lot of service providers offering freebies at the moment to get people up and running. So that's been the main challenge we've been dealing with over the past couple of weeks, and looking at the tools and the capabilities out there to first of all enable everybody to get communicating, to make sure that people are still in touch with customers, setting expectations with their supply chain, and making sure those communication flows are still there for when we do get back to some semblance of normality.
Hi, Ian. I mean, we inside GemServe, we've actually moved relatively easily into working from home. And I think a lot of that's been down to the fact that we started on a digital transformation journey and using the tech and trying to get the best that we could out of the tech, probably about 18 months or so ago. I wondered if Wayne wanted to talk to us a bit about the tech we've been using, but also what other stuff is around there, and then I can come back and talk about what we found in terms of the implementation, because it has been coming over the last year, our increased use. So I don't know if you want to say anything about what we're doing and how successful it's been, Wayne.
Yeah, largely going back to Ian's point around organizations offering sort of free trials during this period. Checkpoint, VPN, and firewall solutions are offering 60-day unlimited license solutions to get organizations who perhaps weren't licensed to have their entire workforce, like us, up and running to support the entire workforce connecting to VPN. On an ordinary day, you wouldn't necessarily have that. So out of a bit of goodwill, they've done the same. But we can see the same from Microsoft offering Teams up to organizations as well, to get them communicating, collaborating, which in this point is the single most important thing. At the very minimum is to keep your organization together and talking consistently on a daily basis, and Teams doesn't just give you that, it gives you the presence as well. But with respect to how we've done it, I mean, I think the biggest driving factor is that we've had the support from the top down. I think that really makes a big difference. This isn't just IT driving a need for a new product or a new toy, as is viewed sometimes. This was more a sponsorship, and I think organizations that have embraced that, have embraced digital transformation, or at least the technologies that facilitate communication, are going to be the ones that were perhaps slightly ahead of the curve. And similarly, I think us doing this webinar is us giving back to the organizations that perhaps were not in such a position. And what we really want to do is just help everyone get back onto the same level and get back on the same playing field. But with GemServe, speaking just internally, we brought in Teams. We were initially on Skype for quite a while, and the migration to Teams came really between the adoption of the technology through our digital transformation journey, also driven by the sort of relatively close timelines around the deprecation of Skype for Business moving into Teams. So obviously Teams does a lot more than Skype for Business ever did. So compounded with just the technology, we invested in training our staff and getting them familiar with the technology, all the areas and aspects of it, how to use it, and you know, we were looking to follow that up with guidelines really around its utilization, which is important. Giving your staff the tools is one thing. Teaching them how to use it is infinitely more valuable.
I think the other thing for me that that's really came out in terms of our adoption has been the fact that Ian's talked about the top down, and you do need that corporate sponsorship. But how many of the staff, especially at quite junior levels, just picked up Teams, picked up the capabilities, and really I started to do things that certainly surprised me. I never knew you could do things like that with Teams. You know, they sort of we're getting things like virtual coffee machines set up so that everybody can turn up at the same place at the same time and have a chat. But that was already starting to happen. We were already getting some of the, and it was quite often the millenniums that were going, well, I think I can do this better. I think we can do our job better, which is very good. And that really a way of having the top down drive, but also the bottom up encouragement to actually say, that's innovation. The concern that you get with that though is around the how do you actually make sure it's still secure? And I know that the NSCS have actually issued some more home working guidelines, but I don't know, Ian, if you want to talk about the security aspects of working from home and how I read a lovely thing in Forbes that said, welcome to your new job. You're now the chief security officer of your company's latest office, your home, which I thought was quite good. But I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that, Ian.
Yeah, I think those that are pretty much split into two types of workers. There are those who were accustomed to working at home anyway and are set up for it and have been doing it for a long while. But what we've now found is a lot of people forced to work from home, and that presents a lot of challenges. In particular, a lot of the workforce does not have a dedicated area to sit. So we've seen, I've joined discussions where we've had people sat in their attic, we've had people on dining room tables, etc. And we have to look at within an organization there will be a percentage of employees who are key to maintaining the operation of that organization that do not have a dedicated workspace in the home environment. So they may be in shared accommodation, and that poses additional security risks. So fine, if we've got a dedicated space, we've got our laptop, we've got a home the home communications network, then that's great. But we've got to be mindful that there will be employees who are not in that situation where they are in an environment where there are people who are not from the organization, who also may be working from home. They're all sat around around the kitchen table, all working on different things together. So we do have to first of all maintain this awareness with employees and people within the cybersecurity sector. Bang on about training and awareness, cybersecurity awareness, and yes, we all do our standard things of running awareness programs when we're in a business as usual scenario, but it's even more important now that our workforce is dispersed that we make sure that we are continuing that awareness and providing people with some guidelines on what to do if they are in a shared environment where there is a risk to shoulder surfing, to overhearing conversations, to being more careful about what they are discussing if they are in that environment. even down to simple use of headphones instead of being on speaker, just to prevent that leakage, or go some way to preventing that leakage of information.
The other one that I've thought about is that obviously one of the big advantages of Teams is you can get to it from anywhere. So you can get to it from your own home machine as well as from your work machine and that. But that's okay as long as you're very careful that you don't download things, that you're not leaving things around on a shared machine that other people can get to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it is what you're saying really about the awareness of what you have to do in order to maintain security. But I mean, in terms of the selection of teams, Wayne, I think we spent quite a bit of time doing that. But I think in terms of the evaluation and selection, because we've been pretty much a Microsoft house, but there's a lot of other things out there that people can get up with quite quickly. And I feel as though there's almost a let's get going quickly, but let's do it in a way that actually means that we can do a short test of it. We can understand it. We can find out where the flames are, and we can actually then push on. But I don't know if something in terms of the evaluation we did around the tools that we use. Obviously, you've been from Skype to Teams and that, but you were much more heavily involved in that than I was, Wayne.
Yeah, the only other one we really considered was Slack, to be honest. It was really popular in the industry, really popular with specifically IT centric organizations who do a lot of development and testing and QA. It works well when you put them side by side. They almost do the same thing in a different format, different layout. Teams goes a bit further in making it easy to use. So that's sort of where we approached it. Is we wanted something that someone could come in, day one, and wrap their heads around it in the interface. Slack requires a little bit more getting familiar with it, perhaps some more pointed guidance. But as we were already naturally inclined to sit with a Microsoft technology, the fact that it was easier to use and get acquainted with, it lent us in that direction to go with Teams. But Slack was the only other one we really considered that sort of captured all the points that we really wanted, which was not only unified collaboration in terms of making phone calls and conference calls, but it was also document collaboration, version history, version control, backed by the Microsoft Cloud, which offered us backup technologies and recovery technologies as well. That's something, obviously in this particular scenario, everyone is concerned with still, is not only am I affording these technologies to get out there and talk to my staff, talk to my colleagues, it's what happens when this goes down. What's our backup plan? And there are other technologies out there that you would effectively have to come up with your own backup plan. So that's another set of work cycles that you'd have to invest in to get that up and running for the purposes of business continuity. And when it comes to cloud technologies, I think that largely has helped GemServe transition so smoothly in the sense that we have less and less of a reliance on sort of technologies in the data center. And the fact that we could access these technologies securely, even from our own homes or wherever we might be working, allowed us to have that seamless experience for our estate. The VPN, we still keep some things lock and key behind that that are very company confidential. Not to say that things in Teams aren't, but I think the cloud adoption methodology facilitated this seamless transition for us.
Okay, there's two things, and both I think what just been talking about, both Ian and yourself, Wayne, has covered them slightly. There's a question in from Matt at Softcat asking about shadow IT and how we're managing shadow IT when working from home. And I'm aware that actually one of the times when you can end up with shadow IT is when the works laptops break, because you're then stuck with how are you going to get them new equipment out, and they end up using their own equipment. I don't know what you want to say about that from the technical side, Wayne, and then perhaps Ian can tell you a bit about the security side.
Yeah, sure. The shadow IT is an interesting one. It's actually evolved much like a virus would, in the sense that in the days of old, shadow IT involved people having admin access to their laptops and installing software at will and things like that, which presented its own security challenges, where you left your sort of baseline standardized security model. It has evolved in the sense that we've taken away admin rights to people's laptops, and we've instituted a change management process where there's a procedure to follow if you wish to have software installed. That's great. However, in today's world with cloud technologies, the application has left your laptop and it's moved into the cloud. So people can go actually procure their own solutions in the cloud now, of which we also have no real true control over, because you could do that outside of your work PC and continue to facilitate business in such a way. So it really comes down to that top-down policy-driven approach in how we enforce, how we educate the staff, and create awareness around the challenges and risks this brings to the organization. So while we've mitigated, let's say 50% of the risk, the remaining 50% is actually on the user. And as any IT professional will tell you, the user is always the weakest link. We're here to protect the organization from themselves at times, and creating awareness around the security around using cloud technologies, using cloud applications. Really has to be driven home from the top down, not just IT saying, no, you can't do that. Because as we know, people will do it anyway. There's always the quickest time to market.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that there is with security, and there is also in digital transformation when you start to actually move people forward. We found it a bit inside GemServe with people using things like Trello, which only appeared when they started to tell us how great they were, and they were innovating. They were doing stuff that was really good. And you say, well, yeah, but you're outside. You're not. It's not controlled. You don't actually know what's happening with that. And I think, Ian, I mean, is this very much a case of the training and the reiteration? Or is it also a part of making it easier for people to use the tools that are provided by the company and secured by the company?
Yeah, well, it's a mix, and I think one of the key issues here is is actually looking and for IT teams and management to be proactive in looking at, okay, we've now got this situation where people are working from home. We may not have ramped up as well as we could have done to do it, but looking at what do people actually need, because if you don't provide what people need, they'll find a workaround and they will go around it, and that's where we tend to start getting issues when people are using different tools, and so it's assessing what people need to do their jobs effectively from home, and then providing that and communicating to people how to use it. And if people are having negative experiences with that, not being scared to adjust and look at something else, because that's preferable to people finding their own way around it. The sort of things that I've come across in the last few weeks are people sharing documents in unsafe cloud repositories, purely because it was easier and quicker than the method that they've been provided with by their employers. So look at what people need, look at how people are working, and then look at is it effective for the workforce that we've got, and also looking ahead. I know there's a lot of firefighting at the moment as to what we've got in the here and now, but also start looking over the next few weeks, and indeed the next few months and the longer term, as to what are we going to need moving forwards. Bearing in mind that just like any major disruptive event over the last 100 years or so, there will be a societal shift at the end of this into how people work. Organizations are going to start reevaluating their working patterns. Employees are not particularly or who have always worked in an office are going to say, well, actually, I quite like working from home now. And I want to keep doing that. We're also going to get management and business owners reevaluating the office footprint, and do we need to pay these expensive city centre rates in the future? So we need to look at tools and working methods now, and keeping the communication open to people, but also keeping an eye on the next few weeks, months and beyond, and as we move out of this incident, how is that going to affect the business moving forwards, and how can we start preparing for that? If what we've got now isn't working, then it's a great time to start looking at something new whilst we've got this this reduced operating level.
Yeah. I think there's also associated with that, and certainly some of the companies that I've talked to, there's a shift in their mindset at the management level. There is much more of a shift to this is, you get the work done, not not I can see you for 7.5 hours a day sitting at a desk, and that does take a bit of change of mind. I think it's been going on. I think there's quite a lot of it's been happening as people have got more used to working at home. But for quite a few companies, there is still this. Oh, but how do I know they're actually working? How do I know they're actually going to do it? And they weren't there at 4 o'clock when I called them, which is all right because they were feeding the kids. They're at home, they were feeding the kids. Actually, they were there at midnight, when you'd gone to bed. That sort of difference in terms of starting the way you measure it. And I think that is part of the cultural change that comes with a full digital transformation. That's actually one of the more difficult things to get through, because it's much easier to change the tech than it is to change the culture. But we've had to do it, and it will going forward. We're going to get more of it. So in terms of going forward, I'd say in terms of the evaluation of the tech, get something quite quick, especially while they're doing free trials, because at least then, if in 3 months' time it's not what you need, you can you know a lot more about what it is you actually need. A very digital way of doing it. And so I'd recommend actually getting on with getting something now. I think that the setting up, I noticed that the Met Police, they published some nice infographics recently that said their chat, their use of chat on Teams had gone up 311%, and I think ours must be going about the same. There's a lot more chat going on. There's a lot more communication going on at that one-to-one type level. That isn't about picking up the phone. It is about almost offline. Oh, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Mm-hmm. Those sort of things we need to encourage as well.
And I was just going to say, and just looking as people are using chat more and are using these tools more, again, stressing that that maintaining the security awareness of what people are doing. We are seeing a huge spike in cybersecurity attacks aimed at the home worker. So an upsurge in phishing attacks, for example. We're seeing statistics come out from the NCSC and others. So also for technical teams, it's keeping an eye on that home workers are more vulnerable than when they're sitting in an office environment. So it's very important that we keep that communication flow going on cybersecurity awareness, for people to be vigilant around the fact that there are people out there trying to exploit this new environment that everybody finds themselves in. And the sort of increased attacks that are being seen are the type of CEO attacks, where the criminals, cyber criminals, are looking at the fact that people are expecting to be receiving more communications from management and are taking advantage of that. So stressing again the importance of security awareness and maintaining that through this period.
Okay, I'm just aware that we sort of got to the end of the 30 minutes, and I just was going to go around quickly and say, if you got one thing that you think people should be doing in terms of the next 4 to 6 weeks, then what would it be, Ian?
For me, from a continuity perspective, it's communication. So it's up and down. It is internally. There's going to be a lot of concerned employees at the moment. So it's making sure that the organisation is communicating with their employees, but importantly, is making sure that customers know what you're doing and what your expectations are, and also looking at your supply chain as we move forward over the next 4, 6, 8 weeks and beyond. Is your supply chain still robust? Now, it may not be functioning in a business as usual manner at the moment, but once things start to ease, have we got to make changes? Are our suppliers still going to be around? Do we need to start that procurement phase and evaluation phase now, so that as we come out of this disruptive event, we can try and pick up as quickly as possible?
Quick one from you, Wayne.
Yeah, I would say for IT professionals to stay really close to your senior leadership. They are obviously very, very concerned about the future of the business, and I think more than ever now, everyone is relying on the technology. So being close to them to hear their concerns, there's a good chance that we already have something to alleviate some of those concerns, and it's just a matter of making that known, and of course providing a comfort factor in terms of how we can keep business running.
Okay, from my own point of view, I think it's a merge. There's a thing about communication. I think there's a communication and communication with the people on the ground, because you're going to find they're doing some stuff that's going to worry you, but you're actually going to also find that they're going to be doing some really great stuff that you can pick up and push out to everyone else. And that whole sort of keeping the channels open, encouraging people to talk to you about what they're doing, where they're having success, and also talking to people about what's not going well. It's very easy to say, oh, this is great. What's much more difficult to say, actually, this is rubbish and we shouldn't be doing this, and let's change it. So I think on that, hand back to Dave just to finish off, and that's the 30 minutes.
Just before you do go, one other point I'd like to make is around adapting to change. And so, for example, what we have seen over the last few days, looking at the compliance world as an example, we've gone through the planning of our own external programs for 2020-21, and we've realized that compliance programs that we run are going to have to change, and so we've adapted and planned to run things like remote audits, etc. And I was discussing with yesterday with one of the ISO certification bodies, who have said to me in the past that their sort of assessments need to be on site. They're now going to be done remotely, and so they're adapting as well. So we'll be seeing over the next 3 to 6 months a lot of activities that would normally be done on site are now going to be done remotely, which is a shift in working, and we need to keep adapting as we go through. Look at what it is we need to do to keep the business turning over, and how can we change what we do to use the tools that we've got available at the moment. And there's one example of something we would normally do on site at customers and suppliers, now being changed to a remote activity.
Yeah, and speaking on that point about adapting to change, while the organization has its own idea of what change adaptation looks like, the new chief information security officers of every home also have their own ideas, and some of those practices may not be industry best practices. Some may be just getting by. So using things like your own home PC, while we typically discourage it, isn't necessarily all doom and gloom. The fact that we've embraced cloud technology is one thing, but there are organizations that haven't done that and aren't as able to facilitate that adaptation. So we do still, as an organization, still have a dependency in the office for certain things. Graham, you mentioned about how do we get kit out to people, who perhaps maybe they break their laptop and there's a short period of time where they've got to use their home PC in that circumstance to keep communication going. That's fine. We understand that business has to go on, and if you need to log on to your browser to get to your email, or Teams even, then that's fine. But with respect to actual physical kit, there is still a process that we have a responsibility to get it out to people. And if your eye is keen enough, it looks like I've got parcel force running out of my living room here. So what we've actually done is we've got the spare kit that we had in the office. We've brought that into my home. My home router, I've actually got a site-to-site VPN set up with the office, so I can actually build and deploy the images from my home, and then we're actually using the courier services that are still running to get out to get the kit out to employees. We've had someone just this morning. We've got a water damaged laptop, so telling people in the beginning of this exercise to be mindful of the proximity of beverages, does only go so far. It is only guidance, no steadfast enforcement there. But we do have to plan for those things anyway. They will happen. They happened, outside of this environment. It's going to happen here, perhaps with more likelihood. So, utilizing things like courier services to get kit out to people, to and fro, get the damaged ones back. That is going to be the natural evolution of how we work from home, should this become a longer than desired exercise.
Okay, I think it's kind of stuff that's coming in is around sort of that we should look at how we do the prioritization. And one thing I'd like to say, which is really just going to the health service, which of course is on everybody's mind at the moment. There's a very good article in the New York Times talking about the tech that's being used in the NHS, actually quite a lot of it being behind, quite a lot being quite old and not high tech. And I think really the point I want to make from that is that tech has to be appropriate and it has to be what people know how to use. The health service, they still use pages on the wards, they still use walkie-talkies on the wards because they can keep them clean, they can keep them within the, they can actually keep them within the ward. They don't take them out, they're not walking around with them all the time, they're not potentially getting any sort of virus or anything on them, and people know how to use them. So it's all very well to say we're going to have this really new shiny tech, but it also has to be something that people know how to use and people know how to use effectively to get the job done.
It's robust, yeah. And we see the same in the OT world, and when we're looking at
OT?
Operational technology. So okay. where we're looking at industrial systems, for example, the latest shiny gadget is not necessarily the best. We're looking for something that works and people are comfortable with. So it's where people are struggling on that side of it is the procurement line. So again, it's communication, making sure that if you are reliant on suppliers, those suppliers are still going to be able to supply during this period, and start looking now at alternative sources, alternative resources, and then looking at the long term or the longer term of weeks to months of how are we going to what's that going to look like when we're back up and running? Are we going to start to need looking now for alternative providers? Are we going to, what are our stocks like? What are if we've got critical equipment, critical services, how robust are those? Do we need to start looking now at what we need to source for the next few weeks, months ahead?
Okay. In terms of, we all made the point about communication and communication being, really sort of important around the company. What's the best way of actually doing it? I mean, we've got some quite forceful people around inside GemServe that will quite happily talk to you about anything and push out the communication. But how do you make sure that actually everybody's involved, that it is the people that are more used to doing more process type work? Have we got any views on how we would go about that? Or not?
Yeah, it all depends on the. I would say that it all depends on the level of sophistication that your communication is at now. I mean, assessing where you are at now and what your capability is now is really what's going to drive that. If you don't have anything, let's say, because there are markets outside of just the UK and the greater part of Europe or Western Europe that perhaps don't even have a basic level of communication. So you're gonna start yourself with SMS perhaps in contacting your employees in that way. Hopefully you have that mechanism. Staying in touch with your employees, keeping them engaged, letting them know what you're working on and where you're trying to get to. Is really important. So not keeping them in the dark, but assuming that we're beyond that basic level of communication. I think people that are perhaps more process driven are going to need structure, and they probably already implemented that in their own routine on a day-to-day basis. What they're doing as part of that routine hopefully is consuming information, and a good way to put that out is through SharePoint is one valid option. There's Huddle. There are many solutions out there that offer collaboration. So you can get it through a few different mediums that approach it from different angles. And there are a lot of them out there actually that are offering free trials right now that you can subscribe to, and we'll be happy to point anyone in the right direction.
And presumably even the consumer side of it, like WhatsApp, is very
absolutely.
useful.
Absolutely.
Very good
I mean,
for
I
getting
think
groups
even. Yeah, absolutely. And before even any of this, I think within our own organization, I can't speak to too many others. We've seen departments have their own WhatsApp groups just for things, concerning transport. I'm running a bit late today, got train delays, things like that. I think there's been a greater reliance on those types of groups now to cascade information out to everyone.
Yeah, I know that certainly the group I'm in, we've got our own WhatsApp, and it tends to be very chatty, but also very helpful. It's a way of actually getting things through. Okay, gentlemen. I think Dave, you were going to come in and wrap up, but
gentlemen,
thanks everybody.
Yeah, gentlemen, thanks for that. That was interesting, and thanks everybody for joining. Look, just a little bit of information as we conclude. So I mentioned at the start, this is the first in a series with a number of guest panelists. Focus on some of the areas that people had touched on here. So things like gearing up to use the cloud to support future business continuity plans, managing the migration of tricky legacy systems into the cloud in that circumstance. And that can be applicable for large or small organizations, given the climate that the presenters have spoken about and some of the ways that we, as small to medium organization ourselves, have managed this situation. So keep your eyes open for those. We also continue to produce other advice and guidance to support you and your organisation in these times. We'll keep you informed by email for those that are registered with us. For those that aren't but want to be kept informed, please do register. You can contact us directly using the email address that we'll send to share the content with you. We'll also be producing a collated list of some of the reference sources. Some of them have been put in the panel on the right-hand side, but again, we'll share those with you. The purpose of this is very much about informing and giving you some useful information sources that you can use in these times. Finally, we're adapting our approaches and services. We touched on them already in the current times to support in ways that are immediate, things like remote cloud migration support, training sessions on privacy and cybersecurity in the relation to the sort of COVID-19 coronavirus and dealing with employee health information. Like a lot of the things that we've talked about, many of these things are common sense, but it is just cutting through the noise and getting the right information. As many of you security professionals, you'll probably understand that anyway, but we really do want to try and support in that regard. So as I say, keep your eyes open for future information. We'll share details of different sources that we found today. And we look forward to hearing from you. If you want to contact us directly, if you've any other questions relating to the topics we've talked about, or anything else on your agenda in terms of business continuity, security, or the way that you transform and adapt your organisation to cope now and in the future. So we hope that's been informative. I'd like to thank the panel and thank you all for attending.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Right.